What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today I wanted to go over and give you my top 5 free agent destinations for Trevor Story. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, coming in at number 5 on my list is the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Now, the first reason I see Story signing with LA is because the Angels currently have a vacancy at the shortstop position. As you know, LA's primary shortstop last season was Jose Iglesias, and he's still out there on the market, so that means they could get him back. But maybe the Angels want to go for a more offensive type of player at the shortstop position. But right now, if the season started today, the Angels, well, they have 3 ghost men who are listed as potential shortstop options. Now, the reason why I say ghost men is because, well, you know, Rob Manfred. Thanks, Rob. But anyways, these 3 men are Luis Rengifo, Andrew Velasquez, and Tyler Wade. Now, in 2021, Rengifo only racked up 35 hits, 18 RBIs, 6 dingers, and batted .201 in 54 games played for the Halos. Now Velasquez, he only got 15 knocks, 16 ribeyes, 1 dinger, and hit .224 in 28 games played for the Angels as well. While Wade was picked up in a trade earlier this offseason before the lockout from the Yankees for a player to be named later. Now, for reference, Wade with the Yankees last season played in 103 games, had 34 hits, 5 RBIs, no home runs, but had a .268 batting average, but sadly had a 0.1 WAR. That is terrible. So right now, as you can see, the Angels have literally nobody at the shortstop position. They are in a terrible place when it comes to who they have at shortstop. But again, I think Trevor Story is more in line with what the Angels want and frankly need at shortstop, okay? Now, the second reason why I see Story going to the Halos is because, as you know, the Angels like to sign big bats for big amounts of money. And frankly, Trevor Story fits that criteria oh so perfectly. Now, he will probably demand a contract around 6 to 9 years in the realm of 200 to 260 million bucks, which in all honesty is probably something the Angels would be okay doing, especially when you consider the type of contracts they have given out to high-profile bats in the past. Examples: Hamilton, 5 years, $125 million. Pujols, 10 years, $240 million. Trout, 12 years, $430 million. Rendon, 7 years, $245 million. Upton, 5 years, $106 million. Why not go all in and get Trevor Story for 200+ million bucks? So now I want to go over some of the numbers Story put up last season with the Rockies in Colorado. In 2021, Story played 142 games, had 132 hits, hit 24 home runs, drove in 75 RBIs, batted .251, and had an above average OPS at .801. Now, those are the traditional stats for Mr. Story. Let's look at the more advanced stats. Well, as you can see, Story last season did not possess great plate discipline. He was in the 31st percentile in whiff rate, the 29th percentile in chase rate, and the 35th percentile in strikeout percentage, and he was in the 4th percentile in OAA. Plate discipline, not his thing last season. It just was not. However, he did have above average numbers when it comes to him actually making contact with the ball. So in 2021, Story ranked in the 74th percentile in average exit velocity, the 78th percentile in max exit velocity, and the 62nd percentile in hard hit rate. So when he hits the ball, hits it on the barrel, which is again what the Angels love. The Angels love guys who strike out a lot, low plate discipline, and, you know, when they hit the ball, it goes a country mile. That's just the way the Angels have operated ever since they signed Josh Hamilton, to be frank, and Albert Pujols. They just like those type of guys. So what makes 2021 different? I don't know. Now finally, the last point I will make here, it relates to power numbers, specifically the home run total, and what Baseball Savant would have projected Trevor Story to hit in home runs if he played in Anaheim in 2021. The people at Baseball Savant say that Story would have hit 42 home runs last season if he played in Anaheim. That is 20 more home runs than what he actually hit with the Rockies in Colorado. So that means if those projections are at minimum in the ballpark, no pun intended, the Angels would be getting a shortstop who hits 40 home runs plus. That is awesome. So I just think that Story and the Angels make perfect sense in many different ways, and that's why I see them as being a legitimate suitor for Mr. Story here in free agency. Coming in at number 4 on my list is the Houston Astros. Now, the first reason why I have the Houston Astros as being one of the potential suitors for Trevor Story's services is because they still have not filled the vacancy that Carlos Correa has left at shortstop. Now, yes, I do understand that Carlos Correa is still available and out there on the free agent market, which means yes, they still have an opportunity to re-sign him. And even despite what many in the industry have said, which is Carlos Correa is probably going to sign somewhere else other than Houston, I believe that this lockout provides the Astros with more time to look at and reflect on their financial capability and maybe make some moves in-house to better position themselves to take another hack at Carlos Correa in the market. However, if they cannot re-sign Carlos Correa after the lockout is over, I think that Story is the best and the most realistic option for the Astros when it comes to filling their shortstop needs. Secondly, I think that if the Astros are still willing to do quote-unquote whatever it takes to get Carlos Correa back, then they should be more than well enough equipped to sign a guy like Trevor Story, who I think they should view as their second option to fill in at shortstop. Now, I will say that the Astros should move swiftly once the lockout ends when it comes to finding a solution to their shortstop needs, especially if you want to go after a high-end guy like Trevor Story. The reason why is because you do not want Carlos Correa to sign with another team for, let's say, $350 to $370 million. And then if that happens, it would mean that Trevor Story's number could skyrocket to an area where the Astros would just feel uncomfortable matching if they view Story as their second option when it comes to their shortstop needs. So my suggestion to Houston would be, if you know that you and Correa are still miles apart when it comes to that magic number, then I would immediately turn your attention to Trevor Story and get a deal done. Thirdly, I think, like most right-handed hitters, Trevor Story would put up great offensive numbers if he played every day at Minute Maid. Also, if you think about it, if he goes from Colorado to Houston and ends up putting up monster numbers, particularly home runs, he could debunk the quote-unquote Coors effect for all time. So basically, I think Trevor Story's power was made for a ballpark like Houston. Finally, let's take a quick look at how many home runs Trevor Story would have hit if he would have played in Houston versus Colorado. Well, according to the people at Savant, Story would have cracked 41 home runs. That is 19 more home runs than what he actually hit last season for the Rockies in 2021. And only one less home run than what Savant says he would have hit if he played in Anaheim with the Angels. So it looks like for Story, Anaheim and Houston would be great places to play every single day, especially when it comes to his home run total. Alright, coming in at number 3 on my list is the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, the first reason why I have the Phillies coming in at number 3 here on my list is because I think once the lockout ends, the Phillies will be the second most pressured team to make a move here this offseason. Now, my thought process behind the Phillies adding Story to the roster to play shortstop is the same as how I thought Marcus Semien would have fit and worked out for Philadelphia. I think the Phillies should sign Story to a 7 or 8 year deal for around $250 to $260 million and just have him play shortstop. Then you can move Didi Gregorius to second and then maybe trade Gene Segura for a starting pitcher or a high-end relief pitcher because you still need bullpen help. Or if they like Segura and they want to keep Segura, then they can trade Didi for that starting pitcher or high-end reliever. Frankly, in all honesty, it doesn't matter who you trade if you're the Phillies because both Segura and Didi are 31 years old. But I will say, you will probably get more value if you trade Didi because you can list him as a shortstop, and shortstops, are at high value here in this market, even via trade. So that's why I think they should move Didi over Segura probably. Now the second reason why I think Story would be good for Philly is because Philadelphia, they have to make a big move. Their GM, Sam Fuld, and their president of baseball ops, Dave Dombrowski, they have all the weight of the world on their shoulders from the Philly faithful. They're like the Yankees of the National League. They're a team who has high expectations and who've had high expectations on them for a very long time, but were never able to win the big game or frankly, make a postseason appearance. And I just think that this potential Story signing by the Phillies will reignite the fan base and the interest in the team overall. And at the same time, it can set up the Phillies to make other moves that can greatly benefit the ball club this year. Not to mention that just Trevor Story's presence in the lineup will take so much pressure off guys like Harper, Hoskins, and Realmuto. Finally, let's take a look at what Baseball Savant says about Story's home run total if he played at Citizens Bank Ballpark. Well, it says Story would have hit 42 home runs this past season if he played at Citizens Bank Ballpark. If the Phillies add Story, they will be adding a shortstop who is projected to hit 40 plus home runs. Who can go wrong with that? The Phillies need to make this move. Coming in at number 2 on my list is the Seattle Mariners. Now the first reason why I have the Mariners here at number 2 on my list is because just like the other 3 teams I mentioned, the Mariners have a need to fill in their middle infield. However, unlike the previous 3 teams I mentioned, the Mariners have actually made a significant move prior to the lockout. Of course, that significant move was signing the reigning American League Cy Young Award winner Robbie Ray to a 5-year deal worth $115 million. Now, with this move, I think it proves that the Mariners are all in for 2022. And I think it foreshadows another massive move to come for the Mariners once the lockout is over. And I think their next move will be and should be to add a big bat to that lineup. Now, I do understand that Seattle's infield needs are not directly pointed at the shortstop position. In reality, their needs truly lie at third base. So that's why many in the industry believe that a Story and Seattle marriage would just not work and wouldn't make sense, considering Story's value lies at the shortstop position. However, I do have a potential solution for Seattle which will help them get Story, and it will all make sense in the end. So this is how I see it working. Seattle signs Story for shortstop. They keep Adam Frazier at second, and they move J.P. Crawford over to third. It says on baseballreference.com that his secondary position is third base. He should not feel uncomfortable making this move if it's going to benefit the team. Plus, you add a guy in Trevor Story to your offense. Who wouldn't want that? I think that's problem solved, right? Honestly, this is perfect. So now that we have solved Seattle's infield problems, let's lastly look over Trevor Story's potential home run total if he played in Seattle. They say Story would have cracked 46 home runs in 2021 if he played for the Mariners at T-Mobile. This is like for the Mariners getting back Alex Rodriguez in his prime nonetheless. Coming in at number 1 on my list is the New York Yankees. Now, the first reason why I have the Yankees here at number 1 is because I believe they will be the number 1 most pressured team to make a move the minute the lockout ends. Now, I will say that the Yankees are somewhat in the same boat as the Astros are when it comes to their needs at shortstop. Now, it has been well documented all offseason long that the Yankees have been looking for and frankly need a premier shortstop. It's obvious that the Yankees have given up on Gleyber Torres. Now, with that said, it's time for the Yankees to look elsewhere when it comes to their future shortstop, and I think the 29-year-old Story is the answer for the Yankees. Now, the second reason why I have the Yankees, having the best chance to go out there and get Story is because, like the Phillies, the Yankees GM Brian Cashman has all the weight of the world on his shoulders from the Yankee faithful. The fans were already kind of PO'd at him ever since 2017. Also, this anger has only intensified since the beginning of this offseason. This is mainly due to the lack of moves Cashman has made when it comes to free agency. It even looks worse when you know that there are 5 premier free agent shortstops out there on the market. And now that the lockout has come and you're knee-deep into the offseason and you're going to come out of the lockout with only 2 left, that's a lot of pressure put on Cashman and the Yankees to make a move. So in my mind, the Yankees need to land Story or Correa to even consider this a typical Yankee offseason. Finally, as always, let's look at Story's projected home run total. Well, Savant, they say that Story would have hit 48 home runs. That means that if the Yankees get Trevor Story, they will not only be adding a solid defender at a premier position like shortstop, but they will also be adding a potential 50 home run candidate in the middle of that lineup. Thus, I think Cashman needs to get Story if he wants to save the Yankees offseason and frankly, in the long run, save his job. So that's all I got for today's video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Comment down below your thoughts on all the teams I listed here today. And as always, I'll catch you later.